Don't be stupid, boys. Turn off Clyde, support your side.
I've had opportunities to move, good opportunities to move, moves that would have been better financially to me. But I've got ties here, I've got ties that I've got my home here, my family prefer to be here. But the most important tie here is that I like to be manager of Celtic, and I like the people I'm working with. It's as simple and straightforward as that. I like the players I'm working with. The directors I work with are very good as well, so I've got no complaints. And the most important thing is, I like the people who support us. I like to see them getting a bit of success.
Here I go, still scratching around in the same old hole. My body feels young, but my mind is very old. So what do you say?
Football without fans is nothing. It can be the greatest game in the world. If there are no people there to watch it, it becomes nothing. Give an average game with a big crowd, excitement, atmosphere. This makes it a great game. The fans are the lifeblood of the game.
Half the world away. I've been lost, I've been found, but I don't feel bad.
Good day, good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, wherever you are in the world. You're listening to the Half the World Away Celtic podcast from Hail Hail Media. Now, first things first, before I even introduce the panel, I'd like to apologise for those of you that have been hanging on for about 22 minutes or so, hoping to listen to us live on the hour. Unfortunately, we had a few little technical difficulties. We may still have technical difficulties in the show. I'll explain that a little bit later on. Hopefully we won't, no touch wood. So hopefully things will go according to plan from now on. If, on the other hand, you have downloaded this and you're listening to it later on, you'll wonder what all the fuss is about, because it will hopefully run smoothly. So, okay, that's me get the apologies out of the way just now. I guess I'll introduce myself for those who haven't heard these dulcet tones before. My name is Kevin O'Neill. I am based in Mandurah, Western Australia. Across the country in Victoria, Melbourne, we have our good friend and the famous Mr. Patrick Close. Good day, Pat.
Day, boys. Or G-Day, Kev, I should say. G-Day.
G-Day, mate. G-Day. G''day, Pat. Poor Pat is he's having palpitations, the poor man, about these technical difficulties we had, so everyone will need to excuse Pat if he sounds a bit harassed this evening. But please forgive the man, please forgive him. Now also joining us, half the world away, closer to paradise, I guess, is our man who's pushing the buttons for us now. Mr. Barrowstown Boness himself, Mr. Josh Gaffney. Good morning, Josh.
Good morning, Kevin. How's everyone?
Very good, Josh, very good. Yourself?
Yeah, doing good. Had some nice pancakes for breakfast.
Oh, lovely.
Lovely.
That, of course, will be late Easter pancakes. Anybody that knows this show will know that Josh does things just a little bit later than everybody else. Whether it's a Burns night, whether it's pancake day, doesn't matter. Christmas just round the corner for you, Josh, isn't it?
It sure is. Ivan has Pancake Tuesday, I have Pancake Friday.
Pancake every day.
Right, thanks for that, Josh.
Yeah, I'm going to speak up and say, I'm going to say thanks to Josh before we even go any further, because Josh has saved the day once again. So yes, technical difficulties all round, but just to explain, if we do end up off there, Josh is having a few internet provider issues. I'm having more computer issues. He's having internet provider issues. So if we do drop off there, then it's one of those two things. So fingers crossed we can get through the next hour and a bit. Survive, I guess, at the end of it.
Fingers crossed, Pat. Fingers crossed, mate. Well, anyway, we'll get onto it, folks. Just to give you a little bit of a rundown, I suppose, of what we're going to be covering off tonight. We've got a good friend of not just ours, but quite a few people, I'm sure, in the Celtic community. Mr. Jim Blythe is hopefully going to be joining us fairly shortly. Jim Blythe, as I'm sure many of you know, is involved very heavily with Celtic Graves and the great work that Celtic Graves have done over the past few years, I guess. So we're going to have Jim on. We'll have a blather with him. Jim's also done a couple of little recordings about a few former Celtic players or connections with Celtic, certainly. But Celtic Graves have also got a bit of a ceremony happening over in New York City tomorrow. For a former Celt called Charlie Shaw. I don't want to steal Jim's thunder, and I couldn't do it justice anyway, but we're going to have Jim on talking about that as well. We will speak very, very briefly about the St Mirren game, I guess, last weekend, because there's been plenty of internet bumpots out there. I guess I've discussed this since last weekend, and plenty online. We'll skim over that very quickly tonight, folks. Don't want to spend too much time on it. But we've got a couple of other little items as well that we might touch on as we go through. There's some players that are potentially due an extended run in the team. We'll discuss some of that later on, potentially. We'll talk about our good Aussie friend, Mr. Tommy Rogic. Is he ready for an extended run in the team? For those with an Antipodean persuasion, we might be interested in hearing that. We'll maybe mention about Lenny's charges that he got with this whole offensive language thing that was going on and all that carry on. And there's a couple of other little things we'll try to squeeze in. We'll see how the time goes, folks, and play it by ear, I guess. So, I guess without further ado, we might as well get it out of the way, I suppose, guys. The St Mirren game last weekend. I'll hand it over to yourself just now, Josh, as to what your thoughts on the overall performance was. Try to keep it brief, though, mate.
I was listening to a couple of other shows, basically, talking about the game, and my views differ a little bit. I really feel it wasn't really like lack of effort. I just think we lack one big dynamic that we really need in Scotland, and that's really been able to having good players out wide to really spread teams' back line. Because basically all the way through the game, try to play it through the middle, and it was very easy for St Mirren to defend. There was other factors that played into the game, but I feel if we had a guy like James Forrest out on the right and another good guy out on the left, I think we'd have done a lot better.
Yep. No, that's a fair comment, Josh. I mean, overall, I think, well, we'll probably all agree it was fairly disappointing at the end of the day. But Pat, what was your view of it? First of all, did you manage to catch the game, and what was your own thoughts on it?
Yeah, I caught most of it. Bit of a late night start for us again, so I was dozing off every now and again. It was kind of that sort of game. It didn't kind of grip the interest, I think, for most of it. It was, I think it was. I'm not. I don't think Josh is kind of 100% right. I think it was a bit of an attitude problem. I think it was they were just a little bit slow. They were sticking to the ball. I mean, they obviously a good start with Commons getting the header on in the start of the game. But apart from that, there was very, very few kind of successes in the game. I don't think anyone really performed that greatly, I guess. A lot of guys, I know we'll probably talk a little bit about the refereeing and his performance and stuff as well, but I don't think that should be the excuse. I still go back to the old sort of theory of Jock Stein, where it's we have to beat the referees as well as we have to beat everyone else. So we're always going to be up against the refereeing games and stuff like that. So I mean, it was some silly mistakes from the referee, and it's that's coming to fruition now with the guy getting suspended and stuff like that for simulation. But yeah, there was just so many guys off form. It's just where do you start really? From the back, from the Foster all the way forward I can't think how many successes in the game. Probably Commons until he went off, but Samaras, flat as Hooper, dreadful. Kyle, the list goes on. It's something's not quite right. Can't put my finger on it, but something's just not quite right.
I think that point you made, Pat, about you need to just beat the referee first of all, and then you beat the team in front of you. But I think there's there's bad refereeing performances and there's diabolical refereeing performances, and I think that one there fell into the latter category because there was ridiculous decisions throughout that game. And I think Lenny himself said it wasn't just decisions against us. I think there was a handball incident with Samaras as well at one point as well, which I must admit I had my attention turned away from the TV, which I'll come on to in a little second. I missed that one. But again, the Wanyama sending off, the penalty incident, they're the big flashpoints as a Celtic fan, obviously. And they were fairly diabolical, I think. And what chance have you got when, again, that guy then gets pulled up for the simulation? But at the end of the day, we've dropped 2 points there. Wanyama's got another suspension out of it. So where's the real justice in there? I must admit, I was a bit disappointed with the attitude of the players, mind you. As you said, it was a great start to the game, getting an early goal, and you're hoping you're going to go on from that, build on it, and maybe get another 1 or 2 and get a little cushion in there. But I felt St Mirren over the piece. Again, they were held with the fact that we went down to 10 men. But I think over the piece, if you take the referee out of the equation, they certainly merited something out of it because they were certainly trying. But again, you can do that when you're playing against lesser numbers, I suppose. So yeah, over the piece, I was very disappointed with the result. But on a brighter note, I was exceptionally pleased with where I was watching the game on at the weekend there, because again, a few people that may have listened to this show before, and certainly a few people that know me back in Coatbridge in the Erngo Brass CSC, they'll know that one of my favourite mottos was can't be arsed when it came down to me trying to arrange something for the supporters club or something. But however, I've been, as I've maybe been saying since these shows began, we have finally established a Celtic supporters club in Mandurah. It's known as the Mandurah Celtic Supporters Club, which is quite original. But in the last couple of weeks, it's been a bit of a whirlwind, I suppose, because there's a couple of guys that are, I guess, as passionate about this whole thing as myself. We've got ourselves together. We've got Dennis Doherty, who I keep saying one of these days I'll make sure he gets Skyping into this thing. And we've got Michael Shadlow, who is known on the huddle board as Shaggy. So made good friends with these guys recently. We've got things up and running, and we watched the game in a lovely little Irish pub called Friar Tuck's in Mandurah. We had about 30 odd Celtic fans in attendance, which I was very pleased with for the very first visit. We had 5 visitors from the Perth Celtic Supporters Club. Now, again, for those of you that aren't really up in the geography of out here in Western Australia, Mandurah is about an hour's drive south of Perth city centre. So these guys will have they took the time to come down to support us in our first little game, which I must admit I was very, very pleased and surprised at, because Brian Doherty, who's involved with the Perth CSE, didn't really give us a heads up. I found out through his cousin about 15 minutes before we were going to leave to go to the pub that Brian and a few of his mates were going to join us. So it was really, really nice to have their support. They were there with their nice big Perth CSC on tour tricolour flag, which was a nice touch. And technically, of course, they are on tour because they're only an hour down the road, but it was really good to have their support. But I'd like to just say as well, thanks to all the Celtic fans that turned up on the night. The game itself, we would have hoped for a win, obviously, against St Mirren. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and we've covered that already. But as far as the Mandurah CSE goes, it was a great little night. We had a good little sing-song afterwards. The manager of the pub is a Cork man, and he had actually to leave a bit early. And the girls behind the bar were going to be closing up until Shaggy made a phone call to Ray to say, listen, you're spending a few bucks here, get yourself sorted. So he kept the place open for us, which was really, really good. And needless to say, I had a head in the morning, boys. So that is the Big Kev experience of the St Mirren game. Slightly different from your own, I hope. But long may these Mandara CSC nights continue. And thankfully we've got the show on the road as far as that goes. So yes, you can't. Nobody can slag us anymore for not getting this Mandara CSC that we've talked about for a long time up and running, because it's now happened, and we're going to be challenging the Jockstein CSC over there in Melbourne now, apart for membership numbers and things like that.
Good luck with that.
Nothing to say at all, mate. Nothing to say at all, mate. No.
No, it's all quiet on the CSC front over here, buddy.
I've sent you to sleep there with that rant, haven't I?
Oh, no, I've heard it already, so I'm all right. We're still looking for the pictures, by the way, but that's all right. We'll hopefully hear from the Perth guys at some stage as well in the future. But yeah, it sounded like a good night. And I should just point out, when I spoke to Kev on probably Tuesday night, was it Wednesday night? He still didn't have his voice back. So that's how much singing and stuff like he'd been doing that night. So it sounded like a good night. Shit game, but it was a good night to start things off with, I guess.
No, it definitely was. I must admit, my voice is still slightly recovering from it, but it's near enough there now. But no, we're getting there. Anyway, right, guys, I think we've covered off the St Mirren game. I think plenty there. I don't want to dwell too much more on that. Do we have Jim at all? Has Jim Skyped in at all just now, Josh? Or I could maybe put this little request out to Jim if you're listening just now, mate. If you wouldn't mind calling us in and we can have a bit of a chat. He's not called in just now, Josh. No.
Yeah, no.
No, yet.
No. Yeah. So we should go back to the St Mirren game, because there's still a few things that came out of it. I mean, like, has anyone heard of the Commons injury? Whether if it's in serious, or is that your running the mill stuff? It did look relatively serious, but
well, from what I've seen on telly, it looks like he might have pulled a ligament in his ankle. Special Sunday signal to the bench basically straight away, and it really depends on how bad it is. It could be anything from 2 weeks to a few months. So we'll just need to hear back for Celtic if he'll be coming back this season. And we've got Jim calling in now.
Yeah, he just called me by accident, I think.
Hello, guys.
Hello, Jim. Hey, Jim, how are you?
Hello, guys. I'm very well. How are you? Sorry, I picked the wrong time to put the kettle on. Typical, eh?
Now, you see, I had some subliminal message going on there, Jim, and I knew you were going to put the kettle on, so that's why I tried to catch you on the hop.
Thanks for that. So apologies if you can hear a kettle in the background.
Is it one of those whistling numbers, Jim?
It's not, but I've no door between me and the kitchen, so it tends to dominate. The wonder of technology. Yeah, can I shut up a kettle? Anyway,
no, it's all good. It's okay if it starts making too much of a noise. We'll all whistle in the background anyway to give it that true kettle authenticity.
All right, thanks for that.
Right, Jim, you're not here, mate, to talk about kettles and tea. You're here to talk
kettles.
about...
We've been talking about kettles this week, haven't we? Excellent. Good segue.
We've already covered. Yeah, we've already covered that. So, Jim, obviously, for those who do know you, I'm sure they'll enjoy listening to you. And thanks again, Jim, for coming on the show tonight, actually. But yeah, for those of you that maybe don't know who you are or don't know who you represent or are involved with, do you want to just give us a little bit of a background or a little bit of an intro? Bearing in mind that there will be some guys listening to this half the world away and on the other side of the world, Jim.
I represent, along with many other people, but I represent the Celtic Graves Society. I was looking the other day, I'd actually forgotten when we were formed. We were actually formed in the summer of 2010, which seems a long time ago now. And we were basically formed to address some issues at the time around the care and maintenance of graves of Celtic players, Celtic officials, Celtic managers, and we wanted to make sure that they were looked after duty of care, really, and that Celtic supporters saw that they had an ongoing role to play in the duty of care and maintenance of those memorials. We quickly discovered that we had to involve families, because the families basically owned the graves of all of the players, and since the summer of 2010, we have had a number of commemorations, which again wasn't one of our original intentions, but we've had a number of commemorations around some graves which were unmarked. We've ensured that they were marked, and we've had restoration projects on graves which were marked but which had fallen into a state of disrepair through the ravages of time. We've also, I suppose, taken a really big interest in history. I suppose most of us were history buffs and Celtic history buffs anyway, but we've really tended to become heavily involved in some of the discussions around Celtic's history in the last 3 years, and that's ongoing. There's a number of things we're involved in at the moment, we're chatting about, that we could possibly do in the future, which we hope would bring Celtic's history to the 21st. Our core aim is to ensure that the memorials of Celtic players are looked after, and that their stories are told, and hopefully we're managing to do that. And we managed to do that because of guys like you, because you give me the opportunity and the other guys the opportunity to come on and talk about what we do, and we're really grateful for that. So thanks very much.
And we're only too happy to do that, Jim, because I think everybody that knows a bit about Celtic Graves, or if there's any people listening in to the show or downloading it later on that haven't heard about it or didn't quite they maybe heard about it but didn't quite understand it, I'm sure they would agree it's a fantastic cause, and it really does highlight a little bit more the history of our club and those that went before us, and I guess it's what makes Celtic as a football club and its fans that little bit more unique than some other let me put it, as pretenders out there. So Jim, again, thanks very much for coming on. I guess I just, out of interest, Jim, how many ceremonies since 2010, how many ceremonies roughly have you guys actually done in Celtic Graves?
I think I was looking at the programmes, the commemorative booklets we've produced the other day, just trying to collate them all, and I think there's been 16. And we've had other projects, we've had other restoration projects where we've been in touch with the family and we've restored the graves without a ceremony. And as I say, all along we have to work very closely with the family. So sometimes it's appropriate having a commemoration, other times not. So we've had 16 formal ceremonies, I think, which seems, a big number. I was trying to think as to what they were. But yeah. I think we've had 16, but a few other sort of projects that we've been involved in over that time.
Certainly keeps you very busy, Jim.
It does. And, I mean, sometimes we've had 2 in a week. And that's just how it's worked out. Again, speaking to families, you have to find a time that's suitable for them, suitable. I mean, we try and have the commemorations based around Celtic matches, so people come to the ceremony, and then we go off for a pint and then go to the game, because we're very much, as I've said a number of times, we're very much just Celtic fans like everybody else. So having a ceremony on a Saturday afternoon has to fit around our core aim, which is to go to the game.
Absolutely.
So we tend to have them at 12 o'clock with families, then go and toast the memory of the player or the official, and then go to the game. So sometimes that does mean that they are close together. And it seems as if at other times, as I said to you when we were chatting a couple of weeks back, it seems as if at other times that we're not actually doing anything. But there's a lot there's a lot of planning goes into it, and the more people we try and involve in it, the more stakeholders we have to chat to and to get agreement on. So the Charlie Shaw in New York has some logistical issues with us being mostly here, and the ceremony being in just across the water from New York in Fort Lee, New Jersey. So there's some big issues that we've had to resolve in order to make that happen. But the boys in New York and New Jersey are doing a stunning job.
And that's all planned to go ahead tomorrow, Jim, is that right? Yeah?
That's right. 7 o'clock Celtic Park time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. In the morning, the boys will be watching Celtic Hibs. At half time, there will be a commemorative free Irish breakfast in the parlour.
Excellent.
Then, at some stage in the second half, we might actually win the league, which would be great. But then again, if we do win the league tomorrow,
that would be very.
It would be great, Kev, but we face the issue that we've got to get everybody out of the pub by 1 o'clock.
Well, this is true, but wouldn't that be a lovely issue to have, though, Jim?
It would be a great issue. It would be a great issue to have. The ceremony's at 2 o'clock. But I just know what it's been like, and you know yourself what it's like getting people out of the pub at the best of times. So getting people out of the pub, I'm sure that higher values will win the day. But so we're transporting people from the parlour. People are coming up from Jack Dempsey's, from the Bronx Boys, from the Kearney Celtic Supporters Club. I've heard there's some guys travelling down further. The Shaw family are spread far and wide. Charlie's grandson is travelling up from Alabama from the ceremony. So hopefully it will be a good wee gathering, and we're having it filmed, and that's important.
Excellent. Well, I guess if there's anybody, I'm guessing that if there's anybody over in the northeast corner of the States or the southeast corner of Canada that Celtic fans, you probably know about this already. But if there's anybody out there that catches this show, whether it's live or whether you download it later on, if you're able to get along there tomorrow for that ceremony for Charlie Shaw and join in the celebrations, I suppose, as well, please do try to get yourselves along to that and support the Celtic Graves. Now, Jim, you were kind enough during the week we know the Charlie Shaw ceremony is tomorrow, but you were kind enough during the week to pre-record, and this is a little hint for you now, Josh, to start teeing this audio up, mate. You were kind enough to do a little pre-recorded piece on a former Celt. Now, before we go into that, Jim, would you, and again, not to steal the thunder and repeat what you say in the actual audio, but would you like to just introduce this piece before we ask Josh to press the button?
When we set up in 2010, it was based around the restoration of Willie Maley's grave, which we managed to do sometime later. But when we chatted, we thought, well, if that's the state of Willie Maley's grave, what are the others going to be like? So we had to set ourselves a project, and the project, as many will know, actually, I'm probably repeating myself a wee bit, but as many will know, our first aim was to make sure that the graves of the first ever Celtic team were marked, and we had an idea as to who they were, but when we looked further, quite a bit was known about some of the players, but as for all of the members of the team, we didn't even have the confirmed name of one of them, and that player was H. Gordovan, who we subsequently discovered was Charlie Gordovan, and we set about tracing who he was, and then, importantly, we wanted to know where he was buried, and as our aim was, we wanted to ensure that Charlie's grave was marked. So that journey started in the west of Scotland, took us over to Edinburgh, and brought us back to Glasgow, and eventually took us out to the States. So I thought that as we were marking the grave of Charlie Shaw tomorrow, it may be illustrative as to what we do to tell the story of the first ever Celtic player from the first ever Celtic team who moved to the States. He only played 3 matches for us, but Charlie Gorvin was the first ever Celtic player to move out to the States, and hopefully the audio will tell his tale.
Good on you, Jim. Now, I guess before I ask you to press that button for us, Josh, well, first of all, have you got it lined up for us, Josh? Is it ready to go?
You've got it lined up, ready to go.
That's all good, right? So before I ask you to press that button, Josh, if anybody's listening in here, remember, for those of you that are listening in live, well, Jim will be on the call shortly after as well. If anybody of you have any questions for Jim on the Celtic Graves Society or what you've heard on the actual audio itself, please tweet us. You can tweet us on @halftheworld88. That's @halftheworld88. And you'll be able to. We'll try to answer some of those questions that come through if possible. On the other hand, if you want to try to Skype us in as well, we'll see if Josh's internet connection can withstand it. And you can maybe give us a little call. We'll be happy to have a chat with you. So, without further ado, unless Pat, were you trying to say something there?
No, I should sort of point out this is a little. It's more of a taster. This first little part 1, I guess, of it. I don't know if whether we talk about it now or after the first section, but between sort of Kevin and myself, when we were looking at setting up this little Antipodian podcast, one of the big things that we were kind of something we're really keen on was getting something not so much just about the current Celtic team and all the events and the tribulations that go on, but obviously stuff about the history of Celtic and stuff like that, stuff that we enjoy hearing about, and I've kind of always loved when Jim's been on various podcasts, and he was very kind to give Kevin and myself some of his time. What would it be now? Probably 2-3 weeks ago, guys. And it was just pretty much along the lines of, well, could we do something together? Because I think it was just a meeting of minds, I guess, and I think we kind of wanted to go down the same path, and I think it's something we're going to try and do. We can't guarantee it'll be every podcast or even every second one, but it's certainly something we're going to be working with Jim on as much as we can down the track to try and have something fairly regular. Again, it's something we find interesting. Hopefully you guys, if there's anyone listening to this little thing, but if you guys hopefully
upstairs.
Oh, beautiful. So he's the one beautiful. We've got one person listening. But I mean, it's just like it's these little things that we just try to give a little bit back, I guess, to Celtic fans out there. It's not so much just about us, and we'd love people to call in, but we acknowledge the fact that back in Scotland that people are out of work and it's a bit hard sometimes. So this is something this is a little bit of a taster, and then I think towards the end of the show we'll have pretty much part 2 of this. So Jim will probably talk a bit more about.
Could I just add to that, Pat, that the one thing I'm very grateful for is that, as you've heard from my first 10 minutes of rambling, is that I tend to come on to shows like this and just speak. But I'm very keen that if anybody does have any questions, that maybe over the next few weeks and months, then if they don't want to phone in and ask them, then they, as you say, they put it up on Twitter or they text in and just ask them. I'm keen that we're available for that, and it needn't be about a Celtic Graves issue. It can be about a Celtic history issue, and I'm just grateful again for the opportunity to do that.
You're very welcome, Jim. So I'll just read out that Twitter handle again, folks. It's @halftheworld88. If you've got any questions for Jim, we'll try to answer them after this. But now, Josh, if I could, you've been waiting patiently, mate, with your finger over that big red button, like North Korea are doing just now. You can take it away, Josh.
All right, here we go.
On Saturday, April the 6th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at the Madonna Cemetery, Fort Lee, New Jersey. Celtic fans, Celtic club officials and members of the Shaw family will gather to pay their respects at the final resting place of Charlie Shaw, legendary Celtic goalkeeper and captain. His grave will be blessed by Monsignor Peter Smith, Vatican attaché to the United Nations and formerly parish priest of St Mary's, Carlton. Charlie would move to America in 1925, but he was by no means the first Celt to travel across the water, and by no means the last. Other Celts to have played in America were Willie McStay, Willie Crilly. Andy McAtee joined Charlie for a short-lived spell at New Bedford Whalers. Roy Milne, Joe Haverty, and in later years Bobby Lennox at Houston Hurricanes and Jimmy Johnson at San Jose Earthquakes. Many other Celts plied their trade on the other side of the Atlantic, but the trail was blazed as early as 1888. On the 28th of May 1888, the newly formed Celtic played their first match, a 5-2 victory over Rangers, now that you ask. Much has been written about the members of that team over the years, but there was always a mystery about H. Gorovin of Govan Whitefield. Who was he? In 2008, a thread appeared on Kerrydale Street, the Celtic Forum, about the identity of H. Gorovin. It started, "Hi, does anybody know anything about H. Gorovin, who played in the very first game of Celtic football? There seems to be information on members of the team, but nothing on Mr. Gorovin. Also, in the list of all the players in the first game Celtic played in brackets, there are football clubs mentioned. What do they mean? Etc. H. Gorovin, Govan Whitefield. Hope to hear from someone with knowledge of the Celtic football history." Safe to assume, perhaps, that the questioner had limited experience of Celtic's history. The question would remain unresolved until the summer of 2010, when the newly established Celtic Graves Society took it upon themselves to find the resting place of every member of that first ever Celtic team, including H. Gorovin. So what was known about the elusive H. Gorovin?
Okay then, folks. So hopefully you enjoyed that little taster, as we said there from Jim. Again, if you do have any questions for Jim, whether it's on what you've just listened to there, whether it's on Celtic Graves, or whether it's on any aspect of Celtic's history, we will have Jim with us for as long as Jim wishes to stay on the show, I suppose. He's going to be with us for a while, so yeah, please do tweet in your questions. That's at halftheworld88. You can send in your questions there, or if you're brave enough, you can Skype us. And I think the Skype handle, Josh, what is it again, mates? Is it the same, Half the World?
Yeah, it's the same Skype handle. It's Half the World 8 to 8.
It's all good. Pat does always remind me of this, that absolutely everything we do, whether it's an email address, whether it's Skype, whether it's Twitter, whether it's all Half the World 88. He's told me numerous times, I always forget. I don't know how, but it's just the way it is. So please bear with me, and apologies for my ignorance, folks. Well, anyway, I'm just trying to check Twitter just now, folks, to see if we've got anything in there just now. We're certainly getting a few follows. We don't have any questions as such just now for us, but I do notice that one of our regular contributors to the show, certainly via Twitter, is at Craig1888, so that's Craig out there. He's tweeting back about a point we made earlier on about Chris Commons. Commons tweeted his scan was all clear and he should be back fairly soon, basically. So I don't know, Craig, if you're out there and you're able to, if you wish to Skype in tonight, we'd be happy to have you on the show, mate, and get some views from you. If not, keep those tweets coming. Well, I guess what we'll maybe do at this stage, guys, later on we're going to have, or we'll probably play out with the second part of that Charlie Gorovin audio that, as I said, Jim kindly pre-recorded for us earlier on in the week. But what we'll maybe do now is come on to some other topics that are maybe what we hope that maybe not been covered by some of the other podcasts and some other internet bampots that are out there. But there was a point again that our friend Craig 1888 had made during the week. I think this was in a conversation with Pat, and it was along the lines of, and again, Jim, I think you might give some good insight to this here. I'm springing this on you, but I'm sure you'll be able to contribute here. It's a little bit of how we differentiate. We hear the terms Celtic greats and Celtic legends. Now, this caused a little bit of discussion and debate between Pat and Craig during the week there. And Pat and myself were kind of mentioning it just the other night. And we thought it might be, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit, well, hopefully it's interesting. Maybe it's not interesting. But I guess if I could throw it out to the panel here, first of all, what do we term, or who would we term as being an example of a Celtic great as opposed to a Celtic legend? Now, not to put you on the spot, Mr. Blythe, but I am going to put you on the spot. I'll come to you first. Yeah, you're welcome. And this, of course, has not been rehearsed at all. You'll vouch for that, Jim. But yeah, these terms, they get bandied about quite a lot. Celtic great, Celtic legend. Well, first of all, I suppose, are they one and the same to you? Are they definitely different? And could you give us some examples of who you would maybe describe as a Celtic great as opposed to a Celtic legend, etc.?
I think one of the issues is that when we talk about Celtic legends, it is mostly very much in people's own personal experience. And that's partly why we've started to address some of the historical issues and why we've been keen to talk about the Celtic legends who played, in the early 1900s or the late part of the 19th century. Because there were Celtic legends there. And, these guys were massive. When we think about some of the current Celtic legends, we think about, or Celtic legends, Celtic greats. I'm getting myself tied up already, Kev. Thanks for that. But, we think of we think of Tommy Burns, we think of Jimmy Johnson, and, we see the esteem in which they were held because of the turnouts at their funerals, because of the outpouring of emotion when they passed away. Mm-hmm. This, when we've looked at our history, Barney Battles, for example, Barney played for Celtic at the turn of the century. He was a larger-than-life figure. If you ever see a picture of him, he was absolutely massive. And he went on strike for a year, stroke suspended for a year because of his stance, because of his words being misrepresented. Barney passed away when he was 29. He died of pneumonia, and he lived and worked in the East End of Glasgow all of his days, like Tommy did. And he lived in Bridgeton, and 40,000 people lined his funeral route from Bridgeton to St Peter's Dalbeth, where we've had a number of our ceremonies. So Barney Battles, when you look at what was written about him back in the day, was a huge Celtic figure. But if you mention Barney Battles as a Celtic legend, people will look at you as if you're a little bit odd. And that's always been my issue with this discussion, that so much of it is based on our personal experience. So much of it is based on what we see in the media, and that's not just the wider Scottish media, but Celtic media. We only have so much film of Celtic players. When I grew up, my dad's favourite player was Charlie Tully. Charlie Tully, a Celtic legend? I'd say so, from what my dad said about him. I'd certainly say Charlie Tully was a Celtic legend, or a Celtic great. So I think it's a very difficult question, and it is a question which I think really is only pertinent to each generation. So I would qualify it by saying, who are the Celtic legends and who are the Celtic greats in your generation? There's a thread. Right. It's a really tough one. There's a thread on Kerrydale Street just now, which is the Celtic Mount Rushmore, and it basically says who would be your four figures to go on a Celtic Mount Rushmore. And that is very, very difficult.
Very difficult.
Perception. You could almost ask, instead of the Celtic Mount Rushmore, you could say, who do you name the stands over? And for me, I couldn't pick. I certainly couldn't pick four. We've had discussions ourselves about this, who it should be. But for me, I would want to make absolutely sure that those Celtic greats, stroke Celtic legends of the turn of the century, were recognised as being just as important as the guys that we watched.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it is a good point, Jim. And we were, when we were discussing it the other night, when you start thinking about it opens up a bit of a can of worms, and what does actually constitute a Celtic legend or a Celtic great. But I think you're right. It definitely. It depends on the generation that you were brought up in as well. But I think that's why it's so important in the job that you guys do on the Celtic Graves side of things, and just exposing a little bit more of the history of Celtic to people that have came an age where many great Celts have passed. But again, it's through guys like yourselves that we're able to learn more about some of those great Celtic legends, or those Celtic greats that came before. Pat, I'll come to you and ask you the same question in a second, but we've had a couple of tweets come through there, and they're for you, Jim. One of them's just a word of thanks. We've had a tweet from at BrianTG17, who said, I'd just like to thank Jim for putting up the picture of my grandfather, Patsy, yesterday. It's one for his collection. So that's
fantastic.
Just a little thank you. Okay. So, and we'd
love to talk to the Gallagher family at some. I would absolutely love. Patsy's grave is fantastic. We've sort of had paid private visits to a lot of the legends' grave, or the greats' graves, and Patsy Gallagher. The reason that I'm a Celtic supporter, and the reason that I love the club so much, is that Celtic is exciting, and you go and watch Celtic, and it is so exciting, or it always was so exciting when I was a lad growing up. For me, Kenny Dalglish was the reason that I just absolutely fell in love with this club. And you take yourself back to the 1920s, and Patsy Gallagher, and what Patsy Gallagher done would absolutely be the reason people would be mesmerised by going to watch Celtic. There are Celtic greats who have done so much for the club, but we're about attacking, exciting football. Yeah. And I feel very emotional that a member of the Gallagher family has contacted us, because Patsy, you talk about Celtic greats and Celtic legends. How could you possibly think of not including that?
The passion's coming out in your voice there, Jim. You can hear it, but they're obviously listening in, so it's great to hear from you. And thanks for taking the time to tweet in there. You can definitely tell that Jim appreciates it. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
I'd say on Patsy Gallagher. I'm 40 years old, or 40 years young, I should say, actually. But Patsy Gallagher would be one of those Celts that, if you were to try your best to rack your brains as to who would have been Celts that were well before your time, but you've heard your father talk about, or your grandfather talk about, Patsy Gallagher's always one of those guys. Similarly, I suppose, to Charlie Tully. One of those players that you never ever saw the guy. You just heard about him, and it was, as you said, Jim, it was all about that whole playing football the Celtic way, the whole attack, all-out attack, and
absolutely,
just
Kevin,
great ball skills, and the type of players that we all want to see in the hoops, basically.
When we had the discussion as to who the greatest ever Celt was going to be, what was the chance that it was going to be a defender? Now, I love Billy McNeil. I love, many of our great defenders, but there was never a hope in hell that the greatest ever Celt was going to be anything but somebody who would excite us and somebody who would go and take the piss out of opposition defenders, basically.
That's what you want, isn't it? You can't whack it, as they say. That's what we all want to see in the hoops. And here's hoping we see a few more players like that in the future. Now, we've got another one, Jim, from, again, our good friend Chris McMonigal. Now, Chris, if some of you remember, was on our last show. Was it the last one or the one we did prior? But it was basically the one about the kettling incident. We've mentioned kettling again before, but Chris came on and took the time to give us a different perspective on it, is fair to say. But Chris has tweeted in and he's asking Jim, do you know if any of the Celtic greats ended up on this side of the world or this half of the world? Now, this half of the world being Australia or New Zealand, I suppose. Have we got any down this neck of the woods? I know we've got Willie Wallace, obviously. He's over around about the Gold Coast, I believe. But is there anybody? Yeah. But
he's still involved in football as well. So he's. I think he runs a little team. I think he actually plays against Chris's team up in Queensland. So I think Chris can confirm that. But, yeah. So he's the opposition.
I think he does. But to your knowledge, Jim, are there any ex-Celts that are over here, or maybe died over here, or buried over here? Have any of your investigations taken you to Oz, the land down under?
We asked the question back in the early days. Some of the people who joined the society, quite a number actually, based in Oz in New Zealand. And the question was asked then, so we knew that Willie Wallace had gone out. And didn't Dixie Deans played in Australia as well for a time, did he not? Am I totally mistaken there? I thought Dixie played.
You have. Jim, you just ruined our quiz for the next show. It's weird, I come on to believe. You've killed it. You've killed it. Right. Josh, get him off. Get him cut off. Yes, he did. He played in Adelaide. Now, okay, I'm going to ask the question anyway. Name the only player that's played for Celtic and Juventus. So there you go. He actually played for Adelaide. Was it Adelaide United Juventus or something stupid like that? Adelaide City Juventus. So you just ruined it. Thanks, Jim, for nothing.
Oh, that's all right. I'll come back on next week and ruin next week.
Unwittingly though, Jim, it was unwittingly done, mate. You didn't know it.
It's all part of the grand Timmy conspiracy.
It's the only question I've ever come up with for this bloody podcast, and you had to go and ruin it for me. Jesus, unbelievable.
To the best of my knowledge, that's we did ask the question, and because Willie and Dixie Deans were so recent, when we looked further back, we didn't come across any. Now, from what we've looked at, and the more we do look at it, and the more people hear about what we do from the Antipodes, I don't know if that's the N word, but from the Antipodes, that I'm sure there will be somebody, and we'd be really, really keen to make sure that we remember those players just as much as we do the players who are buried within sight of Celtic Park. So if that's, I'll throw that back to Chris and to any of you guys out there in Australia. If you know of any Celts who did move it to Australia, New Zealand, please let us know.
There's a god down.
Well, Chris is actually, I don't know if it was one of the tweets or on the message board, but he actually suggested at some stage that if you do need help with that sort of thing down under, there's a truckload of people here would help. There's Celtic fans. I know it might be a bit foreign to some people, but there's Celtic fans literally right across this country, from from Perth to Mandurah to Adelaide to Melbourne, all up the coast, Canberra, Sydney, Queensland, Gold Coast. They're everywhere. So no matter if there is someone here, I'm sure you can find somebody to help out as well. But Jim Kindlin has also tweeted in. Thanks, Jim, for reminding us. Probably one of the greatest Celts of all. I'm talking Celtic legend here. Probably the best player, one of the best players in my time anyway. The Maestro lives up in Sydney.
Aye.
Of course he does.
Yep.
So so well done, Kev, for getting that one. Jesus. So so we at some stage we'd love to get him on the show, but I think he's a fairly private sort of person, but he's running his own business up there. But so Willie Wallace, and that's Paul McStay both living out here as well. So that's all we could think of. But so if anyone knows any more, certainly let us know.
Did Willie Wallace actually play in Australia?
I don't believe so, but we need to check that one. But Michael McGlinchey as well, is playing for the Central Coast Mariners. Right. Not obviously Celtic legends or Celtic great, but certainly a name a lot of Celtic fans would recognise. And that absolute Celtic legend, that Liam Miller, is playing for Perth Glory. Playing for Perth Glory.
Perth Glory are actually playing tonight, and they call it the elimination final over here against Melbourne Victory. And this shows you how much I follow the A-League. I don't even know the score just now. Big Brian Doherty will kill me because he loves his Perth Glory. He'll be up. He'll be tuning into that just now on his Foxtel. But anyway, we've actually had another little tweet in there from Chris who says he actually meant dead ones, not alive ones. So he, of course, knows that Willie's on the Gold Coast because he's actually helping out another mate of mine get his Willie Wallace's signature for a Lisbon Lion picture. So, yes, thank you for that, Christopher. Thanks for the correction, sir. I think just before
let's go back into the legend stuff, legends versus Celtic greats. Because when we were chatting the other night about it, you think of these sort of factors. How would you differentiate one from the other? How would you go that sort of level above? And I think it was Craig came in and asked, this is the conversation that Craig and myself were having, was would you say Martin O'Neill is a legend or a Celtic great, or neither? Or was he one game from being a legend? Is he that? And this is the sort of things that we were interested in as well, is what is that definition? For me, Martin O'Neill, Celtic great. If he'd win the UEFA Cup, would be talking about him in the same sort of vein as Jock Stein? I'm not sure, but certainly would be held in a lot fonder, I guess, in the way he is at the moment after his recent sacking, I guess. But would you reckon would he have been one game away from being a Celtic legend?
Well, Josh, let's bring you in here at this stage, because I mean, do you yourself have a definition of what you would term a Celtic great or a Celtic legend, or would you just interchange those words? Or to use Pat's as an example there, Martin O'Neill, I mean, would you class him as a Celtic great, a Celtic legend? What's your views on that?
I think I've got to kind of go with Jim, and I think a Celtic great, that's not really a sort of personal thing. That's a definition, a certainty. You definitely know who a Celtic great is. But when it comes to legends, I think it definitely comes down to a little bit more of personal preference and what kind of players you know about and what generation you've really grown up in. So a lot of people kind of my age, like we'd be talking about kind of Henrik Larsson being a legend with the amount of goals and games that he played for the team, where yourselves, you're obviously talking about players for previous generations that people like me might not know as much about. So basically a great as a certainty, and a legend is a little bit more kind of personal preference / who you know about.
Look, without labouring it as well, like the sort of legend status. But I think if you look at the sort of the definition of legend, is there not meant to be something more about kind of unproven? Like it's more myth and rather than actual fact. Henrik Larsson's a great because there's documentary stuff, there's TV shows, and there's you see all these videos. But then you go back to guys like Charlie Shaw, and is that more Celtic legend because not really many people saw him, know of him. It's just what you've read, and it's more what other people portrayed about him rather than
Well, there's several meanings. That's more like the kind of historical legend, but there's another meaning as in a thing that is very known. So I would say that Henrik Larsson would be a legend for a lot of people. Martin O'Neill would be a great. That's what I'd say.
Well, I suppose what you could say is how many Celtic legends are there? If you are taking the Celtic Mount Rushmore, and it's only Celtic legends who would go on that, are you saying there are, who would be your top 4, or is there a top 11? Is there a top 20? And would Celtic, given Celtic's rich history, and when the Mount Rushmore has been discussed on KDS, as I said, I've seen some people saying it would be Stein, Maley, O'Neill, McCann, and not one. Or I know Jock played for us, but I don't think we'd call Jock a Celtic legend based on his playing career. So you wouldn't call Willie Maley a Celtic legend based on his playing career. So would we really have 4 people on the Celtic Mount Rushmore who would be there for their managerial skills rather than the excitement that they generated on the park? For me, I think these guys are legends. Jock could never be described as anything else but a Celtic legend. But I think there are so many others throughout the years that it becomes a term which is very easy to use, a Celtic legend. You score over 100 goals, you're automatically a Celtic legend. I don't see it that way. Would we say that the 11 guys who hoisted the European Cup over their head are Celtic legends individually, or are they only Celtic legends collectively?
As the team, that was something I was actually just thinking about as you were talking there, Jim. I think we refer to the Lisbon Lions as a collective, and as that collective, they are legends. But individually, some individuals within that team, you would certainly say would be legends in there. But would every single one of them be? Well, maybe not so. Not such the case. And again, we've got to remember that it was only by those guys that were on the park that particular day. There was other players that played their part, and the build up to that that they're not put up on that pedestal with the guys that played that particular day. So we've got to remember them as well. So it was definitely an interesting one. Sorry,
guys like Joe McBride and stuff like that played around that period, and didn't play. I think it was Joe. It was Joe McBride. Didn't play in the final, but actually the impact they made that season as well. Because one of the reasons I was interested in chatting about it is I've been converting a lot of my old Celtic VHS tapes onto DVD, and it's just like when they go through with some of them, like the Lions Roar, the Loudest Roar, and Lionhearts and all these sort of stuff. And one of the ones I was trying to do was the Celtic history, and it was purely by chance, and I literally was putting the tape in and I was loading the recorder and stuff, and up came the big picture of Charlie Shaw, and it was like and it's one of the first things you see in the actual video is this big Charlie Shaw Break Club, and it was and you start thinking about guys like that in truth. It's one of the reasons I'm really, really happy that Jim's on chatting to us about it, and hopefully we can do stuff going forward. Is like I love hearing about this sort of stuff, and it is like I've never heard of the name Charlie Shaw before, but once you hear sort of Jim talk about it, and then once you go back and look at it, and then once you see those pictures on these break clubs, and about that they celebrated them even sort of way back then, you think, my God, we've missed so much. You focus on Paul McStay and Danny McGrain and these sort of guys, and the guys that were playing when I was sort of a young lad, all the way through to Henrik and stuff like that as well. But you think of so much that went before that, that you kind of just don't know about, and it's a shame. It's a shame that kind of it disappears into history, and the young guys won't really get to know about it. But hopefully, with Jim and the Celtic Wiki and these sort of guys getting on board, and Human Torpedo doing stuff as well, as it brings it more to people's the forefront of people's minds, and they actually know about it a bit more. So hopefully we can watch sort of down the track and get these guys and get people knowing about them as well, because I don't know if it's just my age and that sort of vintage I'm getting to, but I find that sort of stuff genuinely truly interesting as well. So I said, if anyone's out there is listening in Twitter land and stuff like that, let us know. If it's the sort of thing that you like, that's we'll push forward, and we'll probably keep doing it anyway. But is there any sort of player that you'd like to know about that maybe Jim already has a dossier? Could we call it a dossier, Jim? Do you have dossiers in your I
know someone who does. In fact, I know a few people who have dossiers. In fact, we talking about Charlie Shaw there, Pat. We when we have the ceremonies, we have we put together a commemorative booklet, I suppose you could say. But we like to try and get some fresh input and to look at things that may not have been known. And the great thing about that is, we've got families' input too. So the photos that the family just absolutely blew me away. And we've got others which I'll get up on the web soon. So we can put that detail in. But one of the things I'm very proud of in the Celtic Graves Society is that we bring together a range of skills, experiences and talents, and we've got Frank Hanaway, who I suppose you could call the unofficial Celtic statistician stroke historian, and Frank has done an analysis of Celtic goalkeepers throughout the years for inclusion in the brochure. And Charlie's up there at number one as the most successful Celtic goalkeeper, and he played for us for 10, 11 years. So it's not the case that he's only played a few matches, so statistics can prove anything. And it's that sort of thing which would be good to publicise, because we're always going to be excited by who we see in front of us or who we see in the telly. And I realise that it's probably only me who's going to have pictures of the original Celtic Park in his living room, or my boy, despite his interest in what I do, isn't he going to have a poster of Barney Battles up on his wall? So we have to live in the real world and recognise what does excite people and what interests people. But I think what we can do is to gradually throw a few more people into the mix. And it's not just us. You mentioned the Wiki. The Wiki have been going for years, and what they do is just stunning. And I've never seen anything like it for any other club. I've seen other clubs trying to do what those boys do, but I've never seen the depth of detail that is included on every player in the Wiki.
Mm-hmm. What I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to try to move on, but before we do, I'm going to read out a few more of the tweets we've had, because I guess what we try to do on this show is we really do appreciate the interaction, folks, especially the ones that are listening to us live. So I do like to give you the odd little shout out here, so if you can bear with me a second. We had Colin Dolan who tweeted us in just to say, hi guys, all the very best with the show. Any opinions regarding the rumours of Lennon and Everton link? Now I must admit I haven't heard about that just now. We'll maybe have a chat about that later on, Colin. We've had a tweet in from Joe /Shosov/ Giuseppe, who says that he's enjoying the show, and that's from Shosov in Belfast. We've also had Craig 1888 tweeted us back in, who said that unfortunately he's stuck in the office, guys, or he'd be pestering us getting on Skype. He told Pat that he'll hopefully get on in the coming weeks. So fingers crossed, Craig, that we'll hear from you in the future. Jim Kinlan has tweeted us in again to say, love listening to Celtic Graves when they are podcast. Is there anywhere that we can hear them all? So I'll interrupt myself there now, Jim. And is there anywhere that we can hear all these Celtic Graves podcasts as such? Do you have a little library? Do you record these things when you appear on these different shows?
It's something I'm aiming to do. I think we started a thread on the Graves Society site, CelticGraves.com. So I'm hopefully going to put them all in there. That was part of the exercise of making sure that we had all of the brochures in one place that people could order if they wanted, but also we thought we need to get the podcast together. It's not just me going on the programmes and rambling on as I'm doing today. It's things like Chris Kujawa, who has recorded all of our ceremonies. I'd like to make sure that they're all in one place that people can access. We've also had discussions with the club about how we can use their film, because every ceremony has been filmed, people have been interviewed, so we've got a full record, or a full visual record of every ceremony. So we're discussing the best platform for that, so that they're accessible forever. And tomorrow, I've actually found out there's a second cameraman now, but we're filming tomorrow's ceremony too, so that's going to be available to everybody. So, answer to your question, it's partly there, but that's absolutely
watch this space. Watch this space. It's a work in progress. There you go, Jim. There you go, Jim Kinlan. There's Jim has given you a bit of an answer there, and hopefully that's going to whet your appetite for the future, mate. We've also had a tweet in from Gary O'Connor. Gary says, whatever happened to the Johnny Thompson Memorial in the cobbled street just off the Gallowgate? Now, I was never even aware of that. Jim, can you shed any light on that, mate? I didn't know such a thing existed.
No, something else. Something reminds me.
Johnny Thompson Memorial in the cobbled street just off the Gallowgate itself.
I think there was something in the cobblestones themselves.
All right.
From memory, I'd have to look back. But when we started working around the John Thompson 80th anniversary a couple of years back, I think something came up then that there was something in the cobblestones around the Gallowgate. But I'd have to look into that. But, that is part of our history, and that is absolutely something that should be preserved. So if Chris has any more details, please fire them into us, and we'd love to investigate that further.
Well, that was Gary.
So that was actually Gary. Gary again. Yeah. So if you're still listening in there, Gary, please do get back in touch. Tweet ourselves at Half the World 88, or you can tweet Celtic Graves directly, because as you've heard Jim say there, he'd be very keen to pick up a little bit more. If you've got any information on it, Gary, or any of your mates, Jim would be grateful to hear from you. So what else have we got? Oh, we've actually Chaz Duffy as well, who's Bronx boy.
Yeah.
Chaz says, great to hear Jim talk about the great CGS. Really looking forward to the Charlie Show event tomorrow. Hail, hail. So Chaz is obviously getting himself along there for that tomorrow as well, Jim, which is great to hear.
Chaz is speaking. Chaz is one of the speakers, and he's going to speak on behalf of the Celtic supporters clubs in the New York area, which we're really grateful. And I know that it's not just his speaking role. He's been working tirelessly behind the scenes to make this a success, as have others. But Chaz, I've had a number of chats behind the scenes with Chaz, and he's been absolutely fantastic. And that's what it's all about. It's about Celtic supporters doing this, and we facilitate largely. But it's guys like Chaz who are actually making sure that it happens.
Excellent.
So I'll just jump in, guys. I'm having some Skype issues at the moment, so hopefully you can still hear me. But there's a guy called Ben Yeezy. I don't know if you can see that. He said he basically replied to Gary Connor, and he said that this is a cobblestone lane, and he's going, that's where my gran used to live. She used to take me to see it as a boy, and they covered over it. So there's a bit of a lead for you, Jim boy.
Yep. Yeah. If those boys, I can see it on my timeline now. Right, I'll look into that. I'll absolutely look into that, and I'll see if anybody we know knows more about it. But I'd be amazed if it had just been totally covered over. But in Glasgow, it's easy to just write off history. I heard this week that the College Bar was going to be closing down, the oldest pub in Glasgow, I believe. I think the Surrey Heat probably has claims to be the oldest, but the College Bar is going to be shutting down. My granddad was born on that street.
Across from High Street Station.
Yeah, across the High Street Station and the corner of High Street and Nicholson Street, where my granddad was born. So to hear the College Bar is closing, and I think what they what are they going to replace that with? So if the cobblestones are out there, that absolutely should be something that should be preserved. So I'll happily look into that, and I'll come back to that when I'm done today.
Good on you. Well, Jim, if I can just, I guess, interrupt just now as well to say that we've been joined on the call from with Callum. Now, Callum, am I right in saying that you are part of the Rebel podcast?
That's correct, boys. How you going?
Very good, mate. Very good. It's good to hear
Callum.
from you.
What have we been talking about? So I've been watching the Melbourne victory in the finals, and we just won in extra time, which was good.
Now, is that we as in Melbourne, obviously?
Yeah, we're victory fans. So we might say this weekend victory making the semi-final. We'll make the semi-finals and Celtic winning the league, which would be exciting.
That would be good. That would be good. Just to let you know, though, Callum, that I must admit, even although I don't really I certainly didn't watch much of Perth Glory when Ian Ferguson was their manager. But being over in Western Australia here, I obviously have Perth Glory sympathies now that Ian Ferguson's buggered off. Mm-hmm. So I was hoping that Perth Glory would win tonight, obviously. But,
you should have won. You should have won.
Is that right, mate?
Absolutely, yeah.
Another glorious failure.
Yeah, well, I think you've won a game in the finals yet. Until the 89th minute, you were all over us, and you missed a penalty, and then 1 minute later, we got a penalty, and we scored, and that was kind of all over from there.
Well, Callum, I guess I'll very briefly appraise you of where we are with the show tonight. I guess we've got with us, and we're very lucky to have with us on the show Jim Blythe from the Celtic Graves Society. So Jim's
how you doing, Callum?
I'm very good, Jim. How are you?
Aye, good, thank you.
So we've had a couple of several discussions about, I guess, historical Celtic players, what makes a Celtic legend versus a Celtic great, and Jim had done a little pre-recorded piece for us as well, and we'll be playing out the show with one of them a bit later on as well. But we were honestly just touching on a few other little bits and bobs. We covered off the St Mirren game last week very, very quickly, so we don't want to go over that at all just now. But I guess one thing that we were going to talk, and just to lighten the mood a little bit, if I dare do such a thing, and if this isn't going to work, guys, please tell me. But there's been a little bit, and again, I don't know, Callum, have you maybe seen this on some of the across the internet? But there's been this thing that has made an appearance in the Celtic shops, and it is a Celtic onesie. Now, do we all know what a onesie is? Josh,
I'm totally.
Do you know
I'm actually Prefontaine's coming back from Scotland at the end of back from America at the end of this week, and he's totally bought me one. So be careful what you say.
Oh, gold.
Wait a minute now. Can I just verify now? Is this a Celtic onesie or just a onesie?
This is a Celtic onesie.
Oh my God! This could be the first Celtic. This could be the first Celtic onesie in Australia.
Probably the first Celtic onesie sold, if we're honest.
Oh no! I'm going to go back to a couple of things, a few tweets that we saw. Now, I'm going to take it actually twofold because
are these Celtic onesie tweets? Pat?
This is kind of it's half related. My tweeter of the month is a guy called Jake the Snake. He's under the handle of Celtic Servant. So he did a couple of things. He, I don't even know who the guy is, but if he's out there, get him to listen to the show because we need 3 or 4 people to listen to it. He's not mentioning a certain
quiz night, is he?
No,
he's not on bragging about beating Celtic Graves Society in a dubious quiz contest one time.
No, I'm scrambling around at the moment trying to find the tweet so I can retweet it. But essentially, his mate, which I think was Gary something, he actually has a onesie, and there's a picture of him wearing it in his house. So I actually didn't realise it was for grown-ups. I thought it was for kids when I first saw it. But when I saw this picture, I could not stop laughing. So just talk amongst yourselves. I'll go and find the tweet, and if I can find it, I'll retweet it for everybody. It's really, really quite funny.
So Callum, you're obviously looking forward to receiving your onesie.
Absolutely.
Should point out, by the way, They're 40 quid. 40 flipping
Like,
quid.
really?
Yeah. It's more than a Celtic top.
I didn't know that. That's a good point. They are more than Celtic top. It's shocking. Look, I've always wanted a onesie, and this is my chance to have, one that I can wear around the house, and maybe to uni occasionally.
Why not?
Trust me, when you see it, you will not be wearing it to uni. It won't get past your front door. It's hideous. It is just. Well, actually, somebody said that whether they turn up to the demonstration on Saturday with onesies and stuff on, so that'll be quite funny. I found the tweet. I'm just going to retweet it from the Hill Media, from the Half the World Away one. So give me a minute. I'll try and you'll be able to have a look at it.
Tweet away.
I saw someone on Twitter ask about whether we thought Martin O'Neill was a legend or a great. Do we talk about that?
We did briefly, to be honest, Callum. I think we did mention that maybe he was, and I think that's what the tweet was saying, that maybe he was one game away from being that legend. Obviously referring to Seville, I suppose. So yeah, I mean, well, what would your own view on that be, Callum? Would you have a view on that as to Martin O'Neill? What box would you put him in there? Legend or great?
I think, for me, I think more of a great. I think my dad would probably say, maybe my dad might be close to a legend, I'm not sure, but he just, he did great work for Celtic, but he left us with a massive wage bill, and he kind of left us a little bit, Gordon Strachan did a pretty good job considering the constraints on him and what he had to do after Martin O'Neill's reign, and he has left a number of clubs not worse off, but in terms of monetary and its finances, he's left a number of clubs, including Celtic, what you'd say is worse off. So it is interesting, you can spend a lot of money, and it's pretty clear that you can, in modern football now, if you spend enough money, you do win trophies and stuff like that. So, look, he was a product of his time. Back in those days, that's when everyone was spending a lot of money. So, he did what was right for Celtic.
Well, Callum, I'll tell you what, because I was maybe going to touch on this later on, but I guess you've kind of led me into this now, so I think it will follow on nicely. As we all know, Martin O'Neill has been sacked as the Sunderland manager, being replaced by Paolo Di Canio, but Pat has pulled together during the week there a few little stats, and I guess the point for discussion then would be, was Martin O'Neill, or is Martin O'Neill as good a manager as people think he is or think he was? Or was his 5 years at Celtic maybe a little bit of a one-off? Now, before I throw it open, I'll read out some stats, so whether you take this in the old head or you scribble it down or something, you might want to look at it, but it's quite interesting stats. In his 5 years at Celtic, so this was from the period 2000 to 2005, Martin O'Neill managed Celtic under 282 games, a total of 282 games. That was comprised of 213 wins, 29 draws, 40 losses. Okay, now I think, again, if you take that out of context and you just say, there's a football manager managing a football team, and you present those figures, it's pretty phenomenal, and any supporter or board would be happy with that. Now, when we look at the win ratio for some of the other clubs that Martin O'Neill has managed, at Wycombe Wanderers, I should say that for Celtic that worked out as a 75.5% win ratio. So that's not including the others, that's just actual wins. 75.5% of every game Martin O'Neill was in charge of, Celtic won. When we look at Wycombe Wanderers, his win ratio was 46%. When we look at his time at Norwich City, it was 45%. At Leicester City, and again, I was a little bit surprised when I saw this because, of course, one of the reasons that we were trying to chase him down was for what a great job he did at Leicester City. At Leicester City, his win ratio was 38%. Now, I know there was a lot of cup competitions he did well in, whereas maybe in the league he didn't. At Aston Villa, it sat at 42%. Now, I don't think we've got Sunderland stats there for him just now, but overall as a manager, Martin O'Neill has had 38% wins, 29% draws, and just about 33% losses as a manager right throughout his career. Now, I guess the first point or the first question I'll throw out there is, Josh, listening to that there, Does it surprise you at all with those stats and those figures that came out, or is that kind of the view you had of Martin O'Neill anyway, or does it make you think about what he did for Celtic as any different?
Didn't really surprise me too much because I've seen these stats before.
Because you are a stato, though, Josh.
but there's no doubt about it. 75.5 win ratio is basically the highest you're really going to kind of get at Celtic, and that's really what we sort of strive for as fans. Each upcoming game, we want to try win every game, and if we can win 75% of them, then I think that definitely keeps every fan happy. Going into more depth at his career at Celtic, definitely started off very well, and I think people sort of underestimate how hard it can be to win a treble. Like you look at Martin O'Neill the past 2 seasons, like so easily, dreams of a treble can go out the window, and doing it at that time with the massive opposition he had, it was a great accomplishment from him. However, there was a few downsides to his game as well. Obviously, leaving a little bit of debt. The last few years weren't too great, but that really just kind of comes down to money. So I'd put him down as a great now, but I think maybe if as time goes on, maybe in a few decades, maybe he could become a legend. If you look back, it might be a little bit brighter.
We'll see how it pans out, I suppose. I mean, Callum, you touched on earlier on about Martin O'Neill, and yes, he definitely, there's no doubt he had a lot of money to spend, and not every Celtic manager gets that luxury. He did kind of leave us in a little bit, I guess there was private circumstances. He gave his own reasons for having to go with what was happening with his wife, etc. at the time, and he certainly did leave us with a bit of a hole. We had players on huge salaries, and it was always going to be a difficult act to follow. But again, I don't know if you were managing to scribble down any of those stats at all. But I mean, did you find anything that I read out there a bit surprising on his previous history or what he's done at other clubs, or does it change your view of Martin O'Neill at all as a manager? And is he actually a great manager?
It does surprise me though. The overall kind of winning percentage was pretty low compared to. I mean, obviously his time at Celtic, he won a lot of those games. And when you go to a smaller club in the EPL, you've probably got different priorities than necessarily winning every game. But yeah, it does surprise me. And that look is pretty old now. He's getting on. I do wonder, does he have? I mean, do we all think he's got another club? Another management stint in him, or do you reckon he'll be done for now?
I think he could maybe do it at Melbourne Victory, Carl.
Not the way we're going right now. Not the way we're going.
No, they've got Ange Postecoglou. I mean, how could you beat a name like Ange Postecoglou with Martin O'Neill? Just doesn't make any sense. No, I think he's. I think when he left us, he had that chance when people were talking about him in really sort of high position jobs, Liverpool, Man U, these sort of things. And there's still part of me, a little bit of a cynic in me, that thinking, that's kind of why he left, to try and go in and get one of those kind of roles, but also leave. And it's very cynical. It sounds really kind of nasty saying it, but the way he left in kind of semi-good terms, if you know what I mean. Everybody knew. I mean, that day at Motherwell, I think it was the 2-0, the Scott McDonald game. That was his last league game from memory. I think it was the cup after that. Did we win the cup? I think it was his last game. Again, that was purely from memory, but somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. But the team was so flat, and everybody knew it. It was just, there was no. In a way, it kind of reflects kind of now. There was no motivation in the team. There was no sort of real drive. And the league was there to be won, and they just couldn't go over the line. And I think he was, partly responsible for that, even because of his circumstances, I guess. But I think his chance is probably gone now. He said, Aston Villa are a fairly big club. You think of the size of Birmingham and the support base that they have, and probably the finance they got behind them. And then Sunderland again, a good working class club and all that sort of stuff, big support, but again, just couldn't get them over the line. But I did see another stat though that's saying I think he had still one of the highest win ratios of the last 5 managers at Sunderland. He was still better than all of them, but it was marginal right enough. It was fairly average, but he still, in relative terms, he did okay at Sunderland. But I think he'll struggle now. I think that's you might see him sort of back at something like Norwich or certainly down the league now. I think he's had his chance.
Chris McMorrigal texted us in there. He's made a fairly good point as well, that Fergus McCann gave Martin O'Neill a budget over 5 years, and he chose to spend it all in the first year. But the point that he does make here, Chris, is that it did put us in front for the first time in years. I don't think any of us could argue with that. I think we all remember the early in the season when we hammered the former dead club 6-2. I think that's just set the tone for that particular season at that stage anyway. And I think that's what Celtic fans will always remember Martin O'Neill for, how we put them to the sword for quite a period of time. And yes, I think the way it all fizzled out for O'Neill at Celtic, it's not the way we would have wanted it, that's for sure. But yeah, whether or not he's going to go down as a Celtic great or legend, I would say the jury would be out. But I'll be honest, I was never a fan of the style of play. I was a fan of getting those results, of course, and the great times that we had as Celtic fans under him, but I was never a great fan of the style of play that we had under him. I mean, Jim,
you could argue it was necessary as well, though, Kevin, that, I'll contradict myself. I'll contradict myself from what I said earlier about, Celtic greats aren't always about big physical players. They're not the players we always remember fondly, but that team, in particular, one of Martin's key recruitment policies was to sign big players who were going to stand up and who were going to stand up and be counted. And in that first season, that's absolutely what we done. And we said, you're not going to walk over us physically as you've done previously. And maybe that was the time for that defiant attitude. But I agree over, maybe in the last year or the last 18 months, sometimes it wasn't the greatest football to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's, as Celtic fans, we would all love to win in the style of Barcelona, for example. But again, I take your point that it was probably necessary at the time for what we were up against at the time. And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed every victory that we had during some of those years under O'Neill, especially the ones over Sevco now. But I think over the piece, if I had the choice, I'd want to be winning games, but doing it with a little bit more style than we maybe did under Mon.
Yep.
So anyway, I think we've been going on for about an hour and a half here, guys. And I'm wondering whether or not we try to draw this to an end. But I guess what I'll maybe do is first of all go round, because Callum, did you have? I know that Pat had got in touch with me earlier on to say you were going to try to get on here tonight for a little bit of a chat, a little bit of a blather. But do you have anything that you're on wanting to say or wanting to promote, or was it just coming on for the general crack?
Coming on to listen to you boys talk shit mostly.
But we've succeeded. We've succeeded in that. I think you'll agree.
He's here for the banter, Kev. Here for the banter.
He loves the banter. He loves the banter.
Well, I hopefully good. I must admit I haven't looked on Twitter or anything Celtic for the last couple of weeks. I've been very slack, but hopefully Celtic win the lead this week. Pity Satanta aren't showing it again, so they're showing the Huns instead, which is a good advertisement for the SPL. That's good.
Yeah, that was pretty bad, actually. I'd noticed that they had shown, Satanta had put up on their listings that they were showing the Hearts game. But then the day after that, I checked it again and they'd said it was to be confirmed. And I thought, maybe they're actually going to change their minds here and they are actually going to show the Celtic game, because somebody's told them that Celtic could potentially win the league. But I checked it again there last night, and it's back to being the bloody Hearts Ross County game that they're showing, which is actually an earlier kick-off anyway.
Sorry, Cal.
Sorry, go.
No, I was just going to say we were monitoring the dates and the potential kick-off time because of the impact it may have on our ceremony in the States tomorrow. And my understanding was that if there was a potential for us to win the league before last weekend's results, then our game may have been moved to Sunday and been televised on Sunday. And that the Hearts game was there. It was booked in as an early kick-off, and ours was never going to replace that. Ours would be in addition to that. But of course, there was never going to be, after the last set of results, or a few weeks ago results before the international break, it was always going to be 7 days notice for changing kick-off. And I don't think that would have gone down particularly well amongst any of us.
No. So it looks as if we're going to be trying to live stream it over here again, guys.
Or Kevin, there's always Celtic TV, mate. There's actually some of us actually putting our money into the club. Unlike yourself, giving it to some Australian company called Setanta. It's just saying, man. Just saying.
We do both, Pat.
Well, there you go. So that's it. See, that's keeping the wheels of industry turning. So.
We do have at least one member that I know, again, Mr. Dennis Doherty, who subscribes to Celtic TV. So, but we might be trying. In fact, I'm not going to say anything. I'll get myself into trouble here. But we'll manage to see it somehow. I can assure you that. Now, listen, I think there's maybe people listening in here that think I'm either missing this out deliberately, or I've skimmed over it, or I'm not going to mention it. I'm going to mention it, but I've deliberately held off until just now because it's been talked about on plenty of other shows, I guess. But obviously, as well as we mentioned earlier on, the Celtic Graves Society have got their ceremony for Charlie Shaw happening tomorrow, Saturday the 6th of April, over in New Jersey. But there's also a lot of stuff going on in Glasgow itself, half the world away from us. There's the fans against criminalisation protest, which is a demonstration, I should say, and rally that's taking place in George Square. And again, I think if memory serves me right, it's about 12 p.m. midday that the guys are congregating there. So again, I don't know everybody else's opinion on this particular show that we've got on the panel here, but certainly my own personal view is I would like to wish everybody involved with that all the very best of luck tomorrow. I think there are some fairly strong points need to be made. Again, you've got to appreciate living over here in Oz. We try our damnedest and try our very best to keep up with events over there. We follow on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we look on the internet and try to get as much information as we can. Sometimes we do feel a little bit removed from it all, and we've got other things to be doing as well, but we try to keep up as much as possible. But anyway, I just wanted to give a bit of a shout out personally to the Fans Against Criminalisation rally, and would like to just offer, I guess, my support to that particular event. We've also got our good friend who used to join us on these podcasts, and hopefully we will hear from him again, Mr. Paul Larkin. The Green and White writer. Paul has got his official book launch, I believe, tomorrow as well, The Last Pearl Diver. I know he's been plugging it everywhere. He's been on podcasts left, right and centre. He's been on Facebook plugging it away there. He's been on Twittering, plugging it away as well. But I like Paul, so I'm going to give him another plug. So, The Last Pearl Diver, it's the official book launch tomorrow. Josh, I'm sure you've got some further information on that you might want to share to the people out there that are listening. Have you got any other information on it to give Paul a little plug for us?
I guess most people already heard about it if they've been, listening to Hill Media shows. Basically, it's going to be at the CSA, Celtic Sports Association, at 5 p.m. after the game against Hibs. And there'll be lots of bandpots there, and it'll be a good laugh. And also the Quadrophenians will be performing live.
Yes. We like the Quadrophenians.
If someone can get me a CD of the Quadrophenians, thank you very much. That'd be most helpful. I think I've only heard a couple of the songs, and it's good stuff.
Mm-hmm. We've also had a caller in who's wanting to ask Jim a quick question.
Is this Gary boy?
How you doing, lads? All right?
Very good, Gary.
Very well,
yeah,
very well.
Good.
Loud and clear, Gary. How are you? On you go, ask your question to Jim, mate.
Yeah, just before I ask the question, just like to say, I've listened to the show from the start there. I've not had the chance to listen to Celtic podcasts lately because of other commitments, and what I've listened so far is fantastic. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Gary.
To speak to you, Jim, followed the Celtic Society from the start, and although I've not had the chance to go to attend commemorations, but hopefully I will do so in a not too distant future. But I like to ask, Belfast Celtic Society,
I think we're losing Gary.
Yep.
Are you still there, Gary? I don't know, Gary. If you maybe want to hang, if you can hear me anyway, if you want to hang up, maybe try dialing in again. We were just losing your audio there, mate.
Did Gary start to speak about the Belfast Celtic Society?
I think it was the Belfast Celtic Society, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're maybe trying to get him back on.
Right, yeah, I see him phoning in.
Is that your kettle boiling in the background there, I hear, Jim?
It's probably my squeaky seat. Anytime I go on something like this, I just like to get in my CJ at a Reginald Perrin seat. So to make
jeez, now you're showing your age. Showing your age.
I am, yep.
I know that. Right.
Poor Callum won't know what a Reginald Perrin seat is. You'll need to describe this for us. I don't know what a Reginald Perrin seat is. I know who Reginald Perrin was, but I don't know what a Reginald Perrin seat is.
Reginald Perrin seat, and this does show my age, but a funny programme. Your boss invites you into his office, says, have a seat. Reggie sits down and the seat farts. So,
yes.
Just to show you that I'm not just interested in history, but I'm interested in juvenile humour.
Yeah, toilet humour.
Toilet humour, yep, you said it.
Tom Shepherd.
That's a Reginald Perrin seat.
Excellent.
So no, I've not had a chance to get the back on.
I don't think Gary, I think, seems to be trying to attempt to dial in and failing. But Gary, keep trying if you can, mate, and we'll when you get back on, if you get back on, you can ask your question again. We think it was something to do with the Belfast Celtic Society, but we didn't quite catch what your question was. So please do keep trying if you're able to, mate.
What I'd say, Kevin, as well as saying what a fantastic job the Belfast Celtic Society do, to preempt the question, in fact, my front door's just gone. To preempt the question, it may have been about the Belfast Celtic Trail in Belfast. Now, I will come back to this in 2 seconds. Give me 2 seconds, lads.
Hello?
Actually, while Jim's doing that, let's just want to give a couple of quick mentions of people who tweeted us in the past. There's John F. Boy 67. He's from Livingston. Now, this goes back to our various chats with Josh. And his tweet was from probably a couple of weeks ago. He said he listened to a podcast on his way to swimming, a swimming meeting in Borrowstown, and he saw the Fald House penguins. So they do exist. So thanks to John F. Boy 67. The other one I was going to give a mention to was Jake the Snake. I think I mentioned him before, but he has, I would say, the Celtic April Fool of the Year. I don't know if anybody saw it, but he basically made up a sort of press conference from Neil Lennon, and it just got people kind of talking about it. I think even Joe McHugh on Video Celts did a page on it. It was really quite funny, and it basically quotes from Lennon that didn't exist, and people just turned on him. It was really quite hilarious. So the last comment was along the lines of, this is the fake quote from Neil Lennon: Rangers have perhaps been punished enough. Maybe it's time to stop bayoneting the wounded. And people just went absolutely ballistic with that one. So just a big shout out to Jake the Snake. So Celtic Servant, that was it made big news. But another couple of ones was we never spoke about was I think we mentioned at the start, was the Everton thing with Neil Lennon. Like apparently Schalke have got their eye on Davy Moyes, and Lennon's the next one. So I don't know if anyone had any thoughts. Is it probably just one of these fake rumours on the from a newspaper? I think there's any truth in it.
I can't see Lenny going anywhere just now. Maybe some people would like him to. In the past, though, I still think, I know we've been maybe underperforming for the last few games, but I still think he's a good young manager, and he's certainly got that passion that we like our managers to have. Celtic daft, and I think the best is still to come from Neil Lennon. I don't think the guy himself has got any intentions of leaving unless he gets asked to go, so I don't think there'll be much in it. But of course, famous last words, he's probably going to be signing a contract for Everton this summer.
And the other factor is there has to be a job to go to at Everton. You know, Moyes, every year at this time, the same thing happens, and Moyes is linked with every potential vacancy. It used to just be in England, used to always be Man United or Liverpool, or I even seen him linked with Chelsea one year. But now, you know, because it's unlikely that he's going to go to any of them soon, the press is casting its net far and wide, and now he's being linked with clubs in Europe. I can't see it. And if there is a vacancy there, would Neil leave Celtic? Would Neil leave the Knights that we've had this year to go to Everton at this moment in time? I really can't see it. I hope not. I really hope not.
What about Neil Lennon's thoughts after the Jim Goodwin event a few days ago? And so I don't know if Josh is there and whether he could actually do that audio, but not that it was actually great quality, but about the stuff that he's basically been charged with from the SFA about swearing at a St. player for stuff that would happen in football parks all across the world. It's which I thought was just bizarre.
Look, I think more of that part, but I think more of that part was because it was broadcast and it was heard. I mean, we all know it goes on at games, but usually the microphones don't pick it up as clearly as that. Because I listened to the link and it does pick it up quite clearly. So I think that was, whether some sneaky bugger put the mics too close to him and he get picked up. But I suppose they have got to act on it. Yeah, it is petty and it's silly and we know what goes on at games. But I think they had to act on it because it came out over the bloody audio, which is he could have been saying a hell of a lot worse, I'm sure. But it's one of those things. But again, it's yet again the SFA have got it in for us all the time, and it's one of those things that happen.
But the thing is, I couldn't actually really hear it over the audio. Like, I had to really turn up the volume on my speakers to above a comfortable level to really hear what he was saying. And even then I couldn't really make it out clearly. So I didn't actually hear anyone complain. I didn't hear anyone complain about it or bring it up until the SFA actually really brought it up.
It must have been STV with their devious Seth Conans that work in there then, because that link that I listened to, I could hear it. They'd obviously bleeped out the swearing, but you could clearly hear the voice. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's some STV Seth Conan that's been up to no good there. It wouldn't have been my good friend Johnny Rennie that works with STV, mind you, because he's a good Tim. And I've probably landed him in it there if there's anybody at STV would ever dare listen to this show. But
no one listening to this show. What are you talking about? This show? There's basically the five of us. Don't kid yourself, buddy.
I
think we've got Gary. Is Gary back on the line now?
Gary is back on. I was going to come back to Gary. So
just been patient here. Just let you guys have your say and we
let us waffle again.
Well, Gary, we're talking rubbish, Gary. Just get in there.
I just that was just a Wi-Fi problem there. I don't know what happened. I hope did Jim catch my question?
Oh, if you could just we caught
the start
it was the Belfast
Yep.
Celtic Society. So if you don't mind just going over it again, please, Gary.
Certainly. There's Belfast Celtic Society do walking tours occasionally, and in locations that are significant to their history. And I just want to know if Celtic Graves Society be do something similar with Celtic Football Club, because I've no doubt there are quite a few locations that are significant to the history, like for example the Bank restaurant owned by Willie Maley. We're obviously not there anymore, but locations like that, you know, will they be doing something similar?
What we've done at the moment, Gary, is when the Belfast Celtic boys first started their tours, I think it was just as we were setting up in 2010, we initiated some walking tours of Dalbeth Cemetery, and we focused our attention on the Celtic players and leading figures who are buried in Dalbeth Cemetery, and we have regular tours within St Peter's Dalbeth, which will continue, and hopefully we'll have another one before the end of this season. But when we looked at the green plaques that the Belfast Celtic boys have done throughout the city, and that would be something we would love to replicate here. But when we looked at it, we thought we will focus our attention elsewhere for the moment, because we have never thought that we would have any security issues within the cemeteries. We would have no issues with identifying location of graves. We don't shout them from the rooftops, but similarly we don't think we have anything to hide, and if people thought that these graves were targets, then I would hope that would very, very quickly become a very serious police matter. However, looking at the possibility of having the same markers in place that the Belfast Celtic Society have, I think that very quickly, really sadly, they may become targets. Now, that's not necessarily a reason not to have them, and I would really like to live in a west of Scotland where you could be proud of something like that, where you could have a marker which was an important part of the city's heritage. Sadly, I don't think we're there yet, but I know that one of our committee members, Paul, is particularly keen to have the walking tours. I think he's done a semi-official tour himself, which included the Bank restaurant, which included the Empire Bar, which included St Andrews, and led all the way through to Sacred Heart and eventually up to Celtic Park. Now, as I say, that would be something that we would love to develop, and in particular Paul would love to develop that, but it might be a little bit different in structure from how the Belfast Celtic boys do it. But I'm certainly keen, not just to continue to do the tours of St Peter's Dalbeth, but to widen the scope of our historical interest, and to be able to say to people outside of the small environs of Celtic Park and Dalbeth, these sites were also massively important. I would hope that the 125th anniversary mass that we played a large part in on November the 6th went a large part of the way towards supporting that ideal of saying that Celtic isn't just about Celtic Park, but that there are other hugely significant sites of Celtic history, not in the city of Glasgow and further afield. And the fact that we now have, hopefully sometime in the next 6 months, there will be an unveiling of a mosaic in St Mary's, which celebrates the 175th anniversary of St Mary, or 170th anniversary of St Mary's, and the 125th anniversary of the founding of Celtic Football Club, also goes a large way to support that idea. So it's something that I absolutely personally would love to be involved in, but there are a few wider concerns that we have to bear in mind in the city of Glasgow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a good point, Jim. It's a real shame that even 2013 that we'd be talking about these kind of concerns, as we've already seen with sadly the vandalism of the John Thompson grave prior to the end of the John Thompson walk, things like that could happen, sadly in the future. But
as I say, Gary, we're not for hiding, and we're not for covering up anything that we do. We are very proud of our heritage, and we'll continue to be very proud of our heritage, and we'll continue to organise a celebration of that heritage throughout Glasgow, throughout the west of Scotland, throughout other parts of Scotland, hopefully in Ireland soon. We're speaking to the Belfast Celtic boys about the possibility of a joint commemoration of players who played for both Celtics. And you see this weekend we're very proud of the part we've played in the development of American soccer, and we have press interest in the States on that. But we're, in terms of a walking tour, and in terms of being able to celebrate that, I would hope that really is something that the tourist authorities in Glasgow would be interested in, because the bus that goes around Glasgow is, I've had my kids on it a couple of times. I love sitting in the top deck and just going through some of the historic sites, but it stops
getting absolutely saturated with the rain, Jim.
I lived in Australia for a year, and I really, really missed the rain and the cold, Kevin. You don't know what you're missing, mate.
Oh, I do.
Just get yourself a sexy raincoat.
I know what I'm missing. I'm happy I'm missing it.
That bus turns up the high street, I think, and it doesn't go into the east end of Glasgow. And I think that's a real shame. And, I know Glasgow City Council is trying to shut down the bars. We've all got our ideas on the bars, and I mentioned the old college bars about to go. So maybe some people have a perception of Glasgow and its history, and by no means do I want the Glasgow of the slums. I'm delighted that the slums are gone, but I want us to accept and to celebrate our history, and I think the East End of Glasgow certainly should be a greater part of that. For Celtic Park not to be included on that wee bus tour just now, I think it's crazy, absolutely crazy.
Jim, but I don't know what you mean, man, because the last time they took the bus into the East End of Glasgow, that's where the roof went missing. They had a roof before they went in there. They stole the roof off it. I mean, they're going to go back.
Mr. Controversial. See, it's only a man from...
buses were made of lead and copper, though.
Hey, you should know about lead and copper, buddy, after your exploits all that night.
Jim was in there?
Jim was stealing copper cables. It was unbelievable. Again, going to the scrappy and selling it. It was unbelievable. He told us this.
What for them?
Enough.
When you talk about the East End, sorry, Callum.
That's right.
When Pat talks about the East End of Glasgow, he talks about the extreme East End of Glasgow, which is Airdrie, actually. That's what we're talking about. Roofs getting stolen.
Tim's in Airdrie. 3 supporters clubs in Airdrie.
I know. Oh, I know that. You don't need to tell me that, Jim, but I'm a Coatbridge man. So we've always got to have that little bit of rivalry. Callum, sorry, you were trying to say something there.
That's right. My cousins live in Airdrie, and also on the Celtic website, they've just got the information for the Celtic Graves Society just put up just then as well.
Oh, great.
Good.
Excellent.
Beautiful. Good stuff.
Yep.
Hot off the press. Brilliant.
Well, guys, listen, Gary, if you can, just stay on, because I'm going to try to... the show's kind of coming to an end. We've been going on dead on the 2-hour mark just now.
Sure.
Which is kind of went in. But so what I'm going to try to do is go around this all, just to have a kind of closing comments. Before I do that, as I said towards the start of the show, Callum, you weren't able to catch it, but I think I did mention that Jim, who's joined us for the whole show tonight, which has been great, had done a little pre-recording or 2 little pre-recordings for us during the week. We had a little taster earlier on. We're going to play out the show with the second part of his Charlie Gorovin piece, which lasts about 10 minutes or so. So please, when we say our farewells, please everybody listen to that. But what I'd like to do before I'll ask Jim to I guess quickly introduce the second part of that and then ask Josh to press that button. I'll go around the panel just to, I guess, pass on any messages. I mean, Callum, do you want to give a shout out to the Rebel podcast, or when is your next show going to be on? How can the guys tune in? When are you next going to be on? What are you going to be covering, etc.?
I think Prefontaine did a podcast with Graham from Beyond the Waves this morning.
Okay.
So I think, I'm not entirely sure because I couldn't do it because I was at work. So hopefully that comes up. But if not, we'll do one probably Thursday or Friday next week, and we'll hear about Prefontaine's exploits in the US and in Glasgow over the Easter break. And
so will Prefontaine be back? Prefontaine will be back.
Yeah,
so this could be a onesie.
Holiday.
A Celtic onesie special podcast from the Rebel.
Don't worry about that.
Podcast.
I will be wearing it proudly on the balcony of freedom, and I will take a picture.
Fantastic. That's what
and you can hit us up on the Rebel Podcast Twitter at Rebel Podcast with a couple of H's in there, and we're obviously on the Hail Media as well.
Good on you, Callum. Anything else you'd like to say as a shout out, or are you happy enough with that, mate?
No, very happy. Thanks for having us, and hopefully Celtic come away with the league and some more interesting times for our neighbours as well, which is even more fun.
Yes, indeed. We might talk about that on future shows, on yours or ours, I'm sure. No, thanks for coming on as well,
Partick Thistle's promotion there.
Of course it is. Of course it is. No, Callum, listen, thanks very much for coming on as well, mate, because Pat had said you were maybe going to try to get on tonight, so really appreciate you coming in and enjoyed your contribution, mate.
Thanks,
Patrick Close. Yeah, no problem, Callum. Patrick Close, my good Airdrieonian friend. Have you got anything you would like? Have you got anything you would like to say, sir?
No,
before we wind it up.
A bit of a shout out to the guys back in my lovely hometown, to one of the newest, I guess, Hail Media converts was Cormac Tague. So turns out, went to school together and that sort of stuff. We live in the same area of Airdrie. So and also Andy Boy, which I think maybe lives down south these days. But so yeah, a couple of guys from Airdrie that they've been tweeting us during the week, which is good for their support. So thanks for that, boys. Yeah, I think that's pretty much about it. Just want to thank Jim for taking all the time, because it's been, well, we've taken up a lot of his time, let's face it, in the past couple of weeks to get him on the show and stuff. So thanks again, Jim, for doing that, and then hopefully we can work together on future podcasts and get some more stuff about historical Celtic figures, greats, legends, whatever you want to call them, and educate the masses, including us, because certainly guys that I want to hear about, and hopefully other people out there listening to the show that something they want to hear too. So thanks, Jim, for coming on. Thanks, Callum. Thanks, Gary, for calling in as well. Thanks for all the guys on Twitter that got involved. So Chris and Jim Kinlan and these guys as well. So next time, hopefully, we can get some more people calling in as well. Said it's an open show. Any Celtic fan can call in. So at Half the World 88, that's our Twitter handle. It's our Skype name. It's pretty much everything. It's our email address. So halftheworld88 at gmail.com. So yeah, sure you can get in touch with us one way or another.
Good on you, Pat. And Gary, have you got anything? Again, thanks for calling in tonight and putting that question to Jim. Have you got anything else you'd like to say, Gary?
Well, see, since this, although this is a half the world, a podcast for Celtic fans half the world away, any Celtic fans living in the UK, if they're stopping by Bristol, and wanting to see any Celtic game, like maybe this weekend, whether the game's on, I don't know, they can come to the Bristol Celtic Supporters Club, and if you want more details, follow on Twitter at Bristol CSC, all in one word, and there. And yes, and I'd like to wish everybody who's taking part in this demonstration tomorrow the very best of luck, and hope it will go by smooth and better than the last attempt, protest in the Gallowgate. And best of luck, and thanks for taking my call.
No problem. Good on you, Gary. Just a question for you, mate. What's the name of your pub, the Bristol CSC meeting? Because I have actually been in there.
Oh,
I
have
can't
you?
remember
Yeah,
the name
yeah.
of it. I have.
It's usually mainly it is the Foresters Arms.
The Foresters, that's right.
That's right. But because of the way things have been going, TV coverage wise, in the last year, all the games, our games are not shown live in the pub, and we go to another pub nearby called the Sportsman Bar, which shows mainly the away games. But the details are added when a game is a live game is announced, where to go and where to.
That's good. I'll quickly explain how I came to be watching a Celtic game in the Foresters Arms in Bristol. Many years ago, I cannot remember how many years ago now, but our supporters club back in Coatbridge there in Gilbrass CSC, we formed a little alliance with Yeovil Town because they played, if you can remember. Yeah, they came up into the leagues. And of course they played in the hoops, so we formed a little bit of an alliance with them for no other reason than they played in the hoops. But anyway, to cut a very long story short and a very drunken story short, we went to one of their away games at Carlisle. We ran a bus down to it full of Celtic fans. We didn't have a game that particular day, so we went down, formed some great friendships, and then we get invited down to Hewish Park in Yeovil to attend one of their home games. And you've got to imagine this, guys. This is one of these things where when we invited them up to Celtic Park and we took them to the Columba Club in Coatbridge, and they were on our bus and we all went in and everything was great and we had a great time. But it was all done as part of our little supporters club, if you like. When we went down to Yeovil, we were treated like bloody royalty by the actual club. We were getting, we didn't get paraded on the pitch or anything, but we were in this little section of the ground, and we've got the Erin Gilbrass Celtic Supporters Club coming down for no other reason than Yeovil playing green and white, all this kind of stuff. A few of our boys had kilts on. We ran a bus down to the thing. In fact, I think we had that. Yeah, we managed to get down there. But anyway, on the way back, we had a great time in Yeovil. But it just so happened that on our way back, I think we were actually flying. We ran a bus from Exeter Airport, that's what it was. But on our way back, on the Sunday, Celtic were playing and it was live on Sky. So, of course, we did our research, thanks to CelticBars.com, and we found the Foresters Arms at Bristol. So we happily went in there and we joined you boys in there. I don't know how long you've been round about that neck of the woods, Gary. I don't know if you were there and you would remember that. But there was quite a crowd of us came in that particular day. I can't honestly even remember who we were playing that day. But what a great memory. And I'll tell you, we were well looked after. I think we actually get presented with a Bristol CSC polo shirt and things like that as well. We were well looked after in the Foresters Arms, mate, and we were sent back up the road very, very happy.
That's very good. Well, yeah, our man at the helm, Kieran Ward, Ward is known. He's really nice guy and very welcoming. Any supporters coming to the pub for big games and that. But I have a soft spot for Yeovil Town because the very first football match I ever went to was a Yeovil match, and when they were promoted to the conference. And funny enough, Graham Roberts was player manager at the time. And
all right, Christ. We wouldn't have went down. We wouldn't have went down or formed those alliances if he'd still have been around. I can assure you that. That's probably why he left, because he played in the green and white, Gary. Is it not?
I think probably, but then they weren't wearing the hoops at the time. I mean, this was in the late '90s that this game, but yeah, I have good friends because I went to school in Yeovil and I have good friends who are Yeovil supporters, and they've one or two have told me about that story, about a group of yous.
There you go. Legends in our own day. Who'd have thunk it? You can tell you went to school in Gary with your in Yeovil, Gary, with your accent.
Yeah, I've just they've had to believe I've kept this tongue for a long time, but there you go. So.
Good on you. Well, they'll give our best to Bristol CSE, will you, mate?
Will do.
Good on you. Right, Josh, I'm going to... I'll ask for your little spiel now, and I'll give my usual slagging on Barrowstown S, mate. What is the weather like in Barrowstown S this fair morning?
Yeah, it's alright.
The
sunny. It's alright.
That's sunny. Well, that's always good. We like to hear that. What's your temperatures?
Warm.
Relatively warm. We'll go with that. We'll let you off with that one, Josh. It was a nice sunny 27 and sunny in Mandurah today on a nice autumn day, mate. So just ponder that. Right now, Josh, have you got anything else you'd like?
26 in Melbourne. Yeah, you're Kev. So anybody wants to come and visit, lovely, beautiful day as well today. So that wasn't even warm though, Kev. That was pretty cold, 26 degrees.
Fairly cool, mate. But again, in Melbourne, it could be raining and 18 degrees tomorrow, mate. In Melbourne,
it probably will be actually. Yeah, fair enough.
So, Josh, we'd mentioned we gave a bit of a shout out for Paul Larkin's book launch. Are you going along to that or anything at all over the weekend, Josh?
Yeah, I'm going along to it, and also I'm going to be doing some filming of the actual night, a few things on the night, and also of the Fans Against Criminalisation demo. So they'll be up on the Hail Hail Media channel probably Sunday or Monday.
Good. So let's everybody look out for that. And again, best of luck to everybody that's involved in that, with the organisation of it, but also the attendance of it. And I guess I don't really need to say this, but please everybody be on your best behaviour, because we don't want to give the boys in blue any other excuses. But yeah, hopefully it all goes well and we're reading about positive stuff on the internet across Saturday and on Sunday. I look forward to seeing that footage as well, Josh, on Sunday. That'd be great. Anything else you'd like to say before I hand over to Jim to give us the final little word tonight? Or are you okay there, Josh?
Yeah, I'm okay. That's it, really.
All covered off. Callum's dropped out for us now, so Jim, I'm going to leave the last word to you before we hand it back over to Josh. So yeah, we've got the second part of the Charlie Gorovin reading, I suppose. Is there anything else you'd like to add to it as you introduce it here, Jim?
Well, just to confirm that the weather in Glasgow is absolutely beautiful today, and I hope it stays beautiful for tomorrow in George Square. I can guarantee that whatever the weather, if it's 90 degrees in Glasgow tomorrow, I won't be wearing my onesie to the demonstration.
Very good, mate. Very good.
I'm sure that it will make a huge point, and a point which needs to be made. Thanks to you boys for giving me the opportunity to come on here. Really grateful. And I look forward to coming on in the future, although we might have to sever all ties if we keep talking about Australian weather. That's unacceptable conduct. And just before the last bit, I'd like to thank Graham from Beyond the Waves podcast, who at very short notice helped with the last part of the little recording that you're about to hear. I'm sure you'll recognise why. And that if anybody wants any more information on the Charlie Shaw ceremony or on the work of the Celtic Graves Society, you can contact us on Twitter at Celtic Graves or on our website, www.celticgraves.com. We're here for the long run, so there's going to be a ceremony at some point. Hopefully by most Celtic fans. It's interesting having Gary on, speaking to Chris McGuigan about some of the stuff he's been doing in Cheltenham, the grave of Peter McGonigal. So, we're here for the long run. I'm sure I'll be passing this on to my kid at some point, but I just hope that tomorrow, if you get a chance when we manage to put the recording up, just spare a few thoughts for the memory of Charlie Shaw, Celtic goalkeeper, most successful Celtic goalkeeper ever, and Celtic captain, who died in 1938. And when he passed away, the words Glasgow Celtic were inscribed on his headstone. So I'm not telling the story of Charlie Shaw. in this little excerpt but the story of Charlie Gorvin and what happened to Charlie once he got to the States. So thanks very much, boys, for giving me the opportunity just to say something about the work we do.
No, you're very welcome, Jim, and long may it continue. It's great to hear that you're in it for the long haul, mate, because I think everybody listening would echo that, and wish you all that's involved with Celtic Graves the very best of luck for the future as well, mate. Keep it going.
Thanks, lads. Appreciate it.
Okay, so thanks to Gary, thanks to Jim, thanks to Pat, and thanks to you, Josh, again for keeping us right. It's great news that your internet didn't cut out on us, mate. So if you wouldn't mind just taking it away, Josh, with playing us out with Jim's final little pre-recording, and we'll catch you all on the Half the World Away show very, very soon. Thanks everyone for listening. Hail, hail.
Hail, hail.
Hail, hail. On the 8th of October 1888, Charlie Gorvin arrived in New York City with his father Stephen. He was about to continue his soccer career and, as we have since learnt, his Gaelic football career. Eugene McBride had given us a clue that Charlie had moved to the States to play for a team in Brooklyn. Sure enough, in 1889, Charlie Gorvin appears for Brooklyn Longfellows alongside his brother Michael. Saturday, October the 12th, 1889, at Ridgewood Baseball Grounds. Brooklyn Longfellows 3, Kearney Clarks 2. In goal, Michael Gorvin, and up front, Charlie Gorvin. The American Census Records of 1890 shows that Charlie's entire family had moved out to New York from Glasgow. The Trade Directories of New York shows that in 1891, 92 and 95, Charlie and his brothers, as well as playing football, were employed in the Navy Yards of New York. Charlie as a blacksmith, Michael as a riveter. Charlie's football career continued, attracting the attention of the New York Times. January 27th, 1890.
The Thistles defeat the Longfellows at Ridgewood Park. Over 300 spectators were present yesterday afternoon at Dykelman's Ridgewood Park to witness the association football match between the Longfellows of Brooklyn and the Thistles of New York. Considerable rivalry has existed between these two teams, and a hot game was expected. Those present were treated to a fine exhibition of association playing. Some very rough plays were made, but no serious injuries resulted. At the call of time, the Thistles defeated the Longfellows by the score of 4-2. Barber, Scott, and Adams played well for the Thistles, the latter especially making some fine shots for goal. For the home team, Charles Gorvin, Young, Foy, and Paul carried off the honors in the field, while Michael Gorvin at goal was at his best.
The New York Times again, March 31st, 1890, Brooklyn Longfellow versus Caledonian Football Club.
The name and positions of the team were as follows: Longfellow Football Club, Michael Gorvin in goal, Fay and Masterson at back, Nave, McCollum and Pope half-backs, Bruton in the center, Green and McGinnis on the left wing, Charles Gorvin and Lennon on the right wing.
For those researching Charlie's life, his career seemed to stop in soccer around about 1892. However, we discover Charlie again playing Gaelic football. The New York Times, June the 6th, 1892.
Champion Kickham's out-kicked. A good game of Gaelic football was played yesterday afternoon at Wallace's Ridgewood Park. The Barrys of Jersey City and the Charles J. Kickham Club of Harlem were the contestants. In the first half, McConnell and Charles Gorvin each scored a goal. Breen of the Kickhams kicked a goal for the Harlemites, and Breen Dolan and Twelmeek scored points. In the second half, the Barrys, through good kicking by O'Keefe and Mike Gorvin and Larkin, made 5 points. The total score was Barrys 2 goals, 5 points, Kickhams 1 goal, 3 points.
The reason for Michael and Charlie's switch to Gaelic football soon became clear. On September the 6th, 1892, playing for the William Barry Association of Jersey City, both Michael Gorvin on the right wing and Charlie Gorvin on the left wing played for the Gaelic American Championship. The New York Times.
Although an hour late, football contestants soon appeased the gathering. The Kickhams of Harlem were strong favorites against the William Barry Association of Jersey City. This game lasted over an hour, the Barrys winning the handsome banner on 9 points and 1 goal against 7 points for the Kickhams. The match was for the Gaelic American Championship and aroused intense interest.
Charlie continued to play Gaelic with his brother Michael until September 1894, when he played his last game against the Thomas Francis Meeker Association of New York. However, the advent of professional soccer in America soon attracted the brothers back to the American Professional Football League. Charlie resumed his soccer career on October the 16th, 1894, turning out for the New York Giants against the Boston Bean Eaters. His brother Michael had to be content with running the line. In 1895, Charlie married Mary, whose career was on the up, having signed for Centreville Athletic Club. By this stage, Charlie was now the lone Gorvin in American soccer, his brother Michael possibly having returned to Gaelic. On June the 17th, 1895, the New York Times records that Centreville Athletic Club, Charlie's team, had won the National Association Football League.
Centreville's win at football. The last game held under the auspice of National Association Football League at Bayonne was attended by a large and interested crowd. The championship cup won by the Centreville Athletic Club was on exhibition and proved to be a very handsome trophy. The winners of this cup yesterday afternoon opposed a picked team from New York and Brooklyn and upheld their reputation by defeating the combination by 3-1.
In 1896, 32-year-old Charlie Gorvin, playing at left fullback, played his last game in his American soccer career, losing to the International Athletic Club by 3-0. He played against 9 men. It was to be the end of Charlie Gorvin's career.
Internationals 3, Centreville 0. The second round in the championship series of games of the National Association Football League were played yesterday at Communipol. The International Athletic Club, playing with only 9 men, easily defeated the crack Centrevilles by 3-0. Although it was bitterly cold on the ground, about 500 persons remained until the end of the game.
The onset of a major recession, combined with the Spanish-American War, led to the suspension of the National Association Football League in 1899. American soccer would continue to reinvent itself over the next century, and Celtic players played a major part in its history. Charlie and Mary continued to live in the King's District of Brooklyn, surrounded by their extended family. They had no children of their own. Charlie continued to work in the Navy Yards of Brooklyn, working as an iron worker and boiler maker. Charlie Gorvin died in Kings, Brooklyn, New York on April 26, 1915. The inscription on the family headstone says simply, "Erected by Thomas Gorvin in memory of his beloved family, natives of the town of Sligo, Ireland." On the 12th of July 2010, almost 100 years after Charlie's death, Celtic fans and club officials had a simple ceremony of remembrance and laid flowers at Charlie's final resting place. This weekend, Celtic supporters, club officials and members of his family will have a similar ceremony of remembrance at the grave of another Celtic player and legend, Charlie Shaw.
The island, it is silent now, but the ghosts still haunt the waves. And a torch lights up a famished man who fortune could not save. Did you work upon the railroads? Did you ride the streets of crime? Were your dollars from the White House? Were they from the 5 and dime? Did the old songs talk to cheer you? And did they still make you cry? Did you count the months and years? Or did your teardrops quickly dry? I know that it was not to be on a cupping ship. I came here and I never even got so far that they could change my name. Thousands are sailing across the western ocean to a land of opportunity that some of them will never see. Fortune prevailing across the western ocean, their bellies full, their spirits free. They'll break the chains of poverty and they'll dance. In Manhattan's desert twilight, in the dead of afternoon, We stepped hand in hand on Broadway, like the first man on the moon. And a blackbird broke the silence as you whistled, it's so sweet. And then Brendan Behan's footsteps, I danced up and down the street. And we said goodnight to Broadway, giving it our best regards. Took our hats to Mr. Cohen, dear old Times Square's favourite bird. Then we raised a glass to JFK and a dozen more besides. When I got back to